Have you ever felt a sudden peace amidst chaos, or an invisible protection when everything seemed to be falling apart? These moments of inexplicable tranquility and safety might not be coincidences, but rather the fruits of spiritual protection, working silently in your life. Padre Pio, the stigmatic saint whose wisdom continues to transform lives decades after his passing, revealed a profound truth about carrying a scapular in your pocket, a simple act with extraordinary consequences. This small piece of cloth, blessed and carried with faith, becomes more than just a religious symbol. It transforms into a spiritual conduit that opens heavenly channels of grace flowing directly into your daily existence. Your life's struggles, uncertainties, and challenges create a battlefield where spiritual forces constantly compete for influence over your decisions, emotions, and destiny. In this invisible war, Padre Pio taught that we must equip ourselves with spiritual weapons that fortify our connection to divine protection. The scapular, when carried close to your body, even in a pocket, acts as a silent shield that repels negative energies and attracts blessings that might otherwise pass you by. It's not about the material itself, but about what it represents. A tangible commitment to spiritual principles and a constant reminder of heaven's watchful gaze over your journey. The transformation that occurs when you begin carrying a scapular doesn't always announce itself with thunderous signs or dramatic revelations. Instead, it manifests in subtle shifts. The gradual lifting of persistent anxiety, unexpected solutions appearing precisely when needed, a newfound strength to face old temptations, or simply a profound sense of being guided through life's labyrinth. Padre Pio explained that these changes happen because the scapular creates a sacred space within your everyday existence, a pocket of heavenly protection in a world often dominated by spiritual confusion. Before sharing this powerful teaching that has transformed thousands of lives, I must help you understand something crucial about Padre Pio's wisdom regarding spiritual objects. Your relationship with sacred objects reflects your understanding of how the visible and invisible worlds intersect in daily life. Padre Pio, who constantly witnessed this intersection through his mystical gifts, emphasized that objects like the scapular aren't magical amulets operating through superstition, but rather sacred instruments operating through faith. When you carry a scapular in your pocket with genuine devotion, you're not simply transporting a piece of cloth. You're making a statement to the spiritual realm about your allegiance and openness to divine protection. This distinction is critical because it separates authentic spiritual practice from mere tokenism. The difference between carrying a powerful spiritual weapon and an empty symbol. The power activated when you keep a scapular close to your body works through three divine channels that Padre Pio often described in his spiritual counseling. First, it serves as a constant invitation for heavenly protection, signaling your desire for spiritual covering throughout your day. Second, it functions as a spiritual reminder that gently redirects your thoughts toward divine realities, even as you navigate worldly concerns. Third, it operates as a connection point through which graces can flow more abundantly into your life circumstances, creating opportunities for both inner transformation and external blessings. These channels remain inactive when the scapular is viewed merely as a cultural tradition or carried without faith, which explains why some experience profound effects while others notice nothing. Your capacity to receive the benefits of carrying a scapular depends largely on your spiritual receptivity, the degree to which you approach this practice with sincerity rather than skepticism. Padre Pio taught that even the smallest seed of faith can activate powerful spiritual dynamics, and this applies perfectly to the practice of keeping a scapular in your pocket. The saints throughout history understood that physical objects could become vessels of spiritual power when properly consecrated and approached with reverence. This isn't about manipulating divine forces, but about aligning yourself with spiritual laws that govern the interaction between heaven and earth. If you believe this teaching can transform your life as it has for countless devotees, write in the comments, "I am ready for this blessing." Your spiritual protection often hinges on decisions that seem insignificant in the moment, but carry profound implications in the invisible realm. This doesn't mean all relationship challenges magically disappear, but rather that you find yourself equipped with greater patience, discernment, and emotional stability when navigating complex interpersonal dynamics. qualities that naturally lead to healthier connections. Your financial and material circumstances might seem disconnected from spiritual practices like carrying a scapular, but Padre Pio insisted that our approach to spiritual protection influences every dimension of our existence, including our material well-being. Many who adopted this practice reported curious patterns of providence, unexpected financial assistance arriving at critical moments, opportunities emerging when doors seemed permanently closed, or resources stretching further than mathematical logic would suggest possible. The scapular doesn't function as a prosperity charm or guarantee material wealth, but it does seem to align your life with flows of providence that ensure your genuine needs are met, often through channels you couldn't have anticipated or orchestrated through your own efforts. The protection that emanates from faithfully carrying a scapular operates like a spiritual immune system that helps you resist forces of negativity that might otherwise infiltrate your consciousness and distort your perception. In Padre Pio's counseling, he frequently observed how individuals struggling with persistent negative thoughts, irrational fears, or oppressive feelings of hopelessness experienced remarkable relief after adopting this devotion. Your mental landscape, the internal environment where you spend every waking moment, becomes gradually cleansed of toxic influences that previously seemed impossible to dislodge. This mental purification doesn't happen instantly, but unfolds progressively as the scapular's protective influence establishes new spiritual patterns in your thought life, creating space for constructive perspectives to take root and flourish. Your ability to maintain focus on important priorities despite distractions and disruptions, what spiritual writers call recollection, significantly improves when you faithfully carry a scapular. Padre Pio noted how modern life fragments our attention and scatters our spiritual energy across countless concerns, many of which drain our vitality without contributing to our purpose or well-being. The protective barrier created by the scapular helps filter out unnecessary mental and emotional static, allowing you to maintain clearer connection to what truly matters. Those who embrace this practice often report increased productivity, improved concentration during prayer and important tasks, and a refreshing ability to remain centered despite external chaos, qualities increasingly rare in our perpetually distracted world, yet essential for meaningful accomplishment and spiritual growth. Your physical well-being maintains a mysterious but undeniable connection to your spiritual condition, a reality Padre Pio understood through both mystical insight and practical observation of thousands who sought his counsel. While carrying a scapular doesn't guarantee perfect health or eliminate all physical suffering, many who adopted this practice reported curious patterns of physical improvement, chronic conditions becoming more manageable, recovery from illnesses occurring more rapidly than expected, or experiencing unusual stamina during physically demanding periods. The scapular's influence on your physical health operates not through magical intervention, but through the harmonizing effect that spiritual protection exerts on your entire being. When your spirit receives proper nourishment and protection, your body often reflects this balance through improved function and resilience. The way you experience the passage of time, whether days feel oppressively heavy or gracefully purposeful, often reflects your spiritual condition more than your external circumstances. Padre Pio observed that those who faithfully carried a scapular frequently reported a curious transformation in their temporal experience, anxiety about the future diminishing, regrets about the past losing their sting, and present moments becoming more fully inhabited rather than merely endured. This shift occurs because spiritual protection creates a buffer against temporal distortions that fear produces in human consciousness. Your days don't necessarily become easier when you carry a scapular, but they do become more navigable, imbued with a sense of purpose and divine companionship that transforms how you move through both challenges and opportunities. Your capacity for hope, that essential quality that enables perseverance through difficult seasons, receives particular strengthening through the spiritual protection of the scapular. Padre Pio witnessed countless individuals who had fallen into despair experience remarkable renewal of vision and expectation after embracing this devotion. The heaviness that makes tomorrow seem unbearable gradually lifts, not because circumstances magically transform, but because your spiritual perception clarifies, allowing you to recognize possibilities and divine movements that despair had previously obscured. This restoration of hope operates like spiritual photosynthesis, converting the raw material of your circumstances into energy for growth and fruitfulness through the light of divine perspective that the scapular's protection helps maintain in your consciousness. Your decision-making processes undergo subtle but profound transformation when you consistently carry a scapular with proper spiritual understanding. Padre Pio noted that many who embraced this practice reported an increased clarity about important choices, not through dramatic revelations but through a persistent sense of inner guidance that helped them distinguish beneficial paths from harmful ones. This improved discernment operates like spiritual night vision, allowing you to navigate complex situations with greater confidence, even when complete information remains unavailable. The protective influence of the scapular seems to filter out confusing static that often clouds judgment, creating mental and spiritual space for wisdom to emerge more readily at critical junctures where clarity determines consequence. The first pillar of the scapular's effectiveness in your life involves consistent carrying with proper intention. Padre Pio emphasized that spiritual tools require proper spiritual approach. Carrying a scapular with sincere faith and intention activates its protective properties, while treating it as a mere token or superstitious charm neutralizes its potential benefits. This doesn't mean you must maintain constant conscious awareness of the scapular's presence, but rather that you should establish the practice with sincere intention and regularly renew your understanding of its spiritual significance. The scapular works most powerfully when you recognize it not as an isolated practice but as part of a coherent spiritual approach that includes prayer, moral living, and sincere desire for divine protection against forces that would separate you from your highest good. The second pillar involves the scapular's role in reinforcing your spiritual identity amid a world that constantly pressures you to define yourself through lesser categories. When you carry this sacramental, you're making a statement, primarily to the spiritual realm but also to your own consciousness, about who you truly are and to whom you ultimately belong. Padre Pio observed that this continuous affirmation of spiritual identity provides remarkable stability during periods when external circumstances might otherwise produce identity confusion or crisis. Your sense of self, anchored in spiritual realities represented by the scapular, becomes less vulnerable to manipulation through fear, flattery, rejection, or cultural pressure. Maintaining consistent internal coherence even when surrounding conditions change dramatically or relationships shift unexpectedly. Your protection against specifically spiritual dangers, those subtle influences that threaten not your body but your soul's well-being, receives particular reinforcement through faithfully carrying a scapular. Padre Pio, who possessed remarkable abilities to perceive spiritual realities invisible to ordinary perception, consistently advised this practice for those wrestling with persistent temptations, unusual spiritual oppression, or environments saturated with negative influences. The third pillar of the scapular's effectiveness involves its function as a spiritual boundary marker, a sign recognized in spiritual realms that establishes parameters around your life and declares your commitment to divine protection. This boundary doesn't eliminate all spiritual challenges, but significantly reduces unnecessary exposure to influences that would otherwise access your consciousness more easily. The testimonies Padre Pio collected throughout his ministry revealed consistent patterns of protection experienced by those who faithfully carried a scapular, protection that manifested not only during dramatic crises but also through the ordinary challenges of daily existence. Some reported being inexplicably redirected from paths that would have led to harm. Others described sudden clarity that helped them avoid deceptive situations. Still others experienced unusual strength to resist temptations that had previously controlled their behavior. These accounts, while varying in circumstantial details, revealed a consistent theme. The scapular functioned as a spiritual catalyst that activated protective dynamics otherwise dormant or diminished in the individual's life experience. Your spiritual heritage, the accumulated wisdom and practices passed down through generations of faithful individuals, contains treasures whose value our modern world often fails to recognize. Padre Pio, who understood both ancient wisdom and contemporary challenges, insisted that carrying a scapular represented not outdated superstition, but timeless spiritual technology perfectly suited for navigating today's complex spiritual landscape. The protective properties of the scapular don't require scientific verification to be effective, just as love doesn't require laboratory validation to transform lives. Your willingness to embrace this practice with sincere faith, even if intellectual questions remain, creates the essential conditions for its effectiveness in your personal experience, just as countless others have discovered throughout centuries of testimonial evidence. Your journey with the scapular connects most powerfully to your life when you understand its practical application in daily challenges, rather than viewing it as an abstract devotion. Padre Pio offered specific guidance for maximizing its protective benefits in various circumstances. During important decisions, carry it with particular intention, silently acknowledging its presence and requesting clarity. When entering challenging environments or conversations, touch it briefly while mentally establishing your spiritual boundaries. During periods of unusual temptation or spiritual dryness, hold it while praying for strength and renewal. These simple practices transform the scapular from a passive object into an active instrument of protection, a spiritual tool that becomes increasingly effective as you learn to integrate it thoughtfully into your navigation of life's complexities. The ultimate purpose of carrying a scapular extends beyond mere protection from negative influences. It seeks to create space in your life for positive spiritual growth that might otherwise be crowded out by distraction, fear, or confusion. Padre Pio observed that many who faithfully practice this devotion experience not only decreased spiritual interference, but also accelerated virtue development, patience growing where irritability previously dominated, courage emerging where fear once paralyzed, generosity flowing where scarcity thinking once restricted. The scapular's protective barrier creates a spiritual greenhouse effect around your development, establishing conditions where virtues can take root and flourish with less resistance from contrary influences that typically slow moral and spiritual progress. Your decision to begin carrying a scapular, or to renew this practice with deeper understanding, represents a turning point whose significance may not be immediately apparent, but will reveal itself through the gradual transformation of your daily experience. Padre Pio promised that this simple act, approached with sincere faith and proper understanding, initiates a process of spiritual recalibration that touches every dimension of your existence. Relationships becoming more life-giving, decisions aligning more consistently with your authentic purpose, protection manifesting in both subtle and dramatic ways according to your genuine needs. Don't wait for perfect circumstances or complete understanding before beginning. The wisdom of the saints suggests that experience precedes full comprehension when it comes to spiritual practices. The moment to activate this powerful protection in your life is now, tonight, before you even fall asleep. Allowing the protective influence of this humble but powerful sacramental to begin its transformative work in your life's journey. The choice to place a scapular in your pocket each morning might appear trivial from a purely material perspective, but Padre Pio revealed that this simple act establishes a spiritual boundary around your life, a sacred perimeter that many destructive forces cannot easily penetrate. This protection doesn't make you immune to life's challenges, but it provides a spiritual filter that reduces unnecessary suffering and prevents certain attacks that would otherwise find their way to you. The scapular, when carried with faith, becomes like a spiritual identification card that signals your connection to divine protection and your place within a spiritual heritage that spans centuries. The changes that manifest in your life after consistently carrying a scapular tend to unfold in patterns that Padre Pio observed repeatedly among his spiritual children. First comes a subtle but persistent sense of peace that gradually replaces chronic worry, not in dramatic fashion, but like morning light slowly displacing darkness. Next emerges an increased sensitivity to spiritual guidance, making it easier to discern which paths to take at life's crossroads and which opportunities align with your higher purpose. Finally arrives a strengthened spiritual immunity that helps You resist temptations that previously overcame you with little effort. These patterns reveal themselves not through spectacular events, but through the quiet transformation of your daily experience, as if your spiritual ecosystem has been gradually rebalanced through this simple practice. Your journey with the scapular connects you to a cloud of witnesses, countless individuals throughout history who have experienced its protective power in circumstances ranging from ordinary challenges to life-threatening dangers. Padre Pio collected these testimonies throughout his ministry, from soldiers who survived impossible situations while carrying a scapular to individuals who found themselves inexplicably shielded from spiritual attacks that had previously devastated their inner peace. These aren't myths or exaggerations, but documented experiences that illustrate the consistent patterns of protection that emerge when this devotion is embraced with sincere hearts. If you're ready to experience this level of spiritual protection in your own life, type, Padre Pio, I seek your intercession, in the comments below, and subscribe to this channel for more life-changing spiritual wisdom that the saints have preserved for our benefit. Your mind might question how a simple object like a scapular could possibly influence the complex dynamics of your life, but Padre Pio explained this phenomenon through a profound spiritual principle. Consecrated objects create bridges between physical and spiritual realities. When you carry a properly blessed scapular, you're essentially establishing a continuous connection to sources of grace that remain inaccessible to those who navigate life, relying solely on material resources. This connection doesn't depend on your constant awareness of the scapular's presence, just as you benefit from oxygen without consciously acknowledging each breath. The spiritual atmosphere around you shifts based on what you carry, regardless of whether you're actively thinking about it at any given moment. The first transformation that occurs when you begin carrying a scapular involves your spiritual sensitivity, your ability to perceive guidance, warnings, and opportunities that your natural senses might miss. Padre Pio described how individuals who adopted this practice often reported an unexplainable knowing that helped them avoid harmful situations or recognize beneficial paths that they would have otherwise overlooked. This heightened intuition doesn't manifest as dramatic visions or voices, but rather as quiet certainty in crucial moments of decision. Your spiritual antenna, so to speak, becomes better calibrated to receive signals that guide you toward protection and away from unnecessary hardship, not eliminating all challenges, but helping you navigate them with greater wisdom and supernatural support. Your relationships also undergo subtle but significant shifts when the scapular's influence begins permeating your daily interactions. Padre Pio observed that many who carried this sacramental reported decreased conflict in their homes, improved communication with difficult individuals, and a newfound ability to maintain inner peace during confrontations that would have previously triggered emotional reactions. The protective barrier that surrounds you doesn't just shield against dramatic spiritual attacks, but also moderates the everyday friction that drains your energy and disturbs your peace.